Hello everybody, how are you doing today? I am doing very well, thank you. Today I am going to be decorating my September journal. So if you've been following me for a while, then you'll know I've been doing these every single month. And I have been doing them in my traveler's notebook, just the original size. So every month I have a new one of these books. It doesn't really matter to me what kind of paper it is, but I do personally really like the watercolor paper. And I did think that last month was my last watercolor paper book, but I actually had a little rummage and I found a few more. So I found this is actually my last watercolor book, but I did also find some like special edition ones which I haven't had the courage to use yet, so I'm not sure if I'll use those because they're from Japan and I don't know when I can get them again. But this is actually my last watercolor book, so I decided to do an actual watercolor painting on the front, which I don't think I've done before. I've done a gouache painting and I've done, I think, like an acrylic gouache, but I haven't actually done a watercolor that I can remember. So I decided to do watercolor today. And as it's like September, we're going into the Burr months, so like September, October, November, December. And I always feel like these months, just obviously they're very cozy and have very like cozy vibes, but I didn't want to do September too cozy, if you know what I mean. Like I didn't want to put like a big pumpkin on the front or anything like that. But what September does remind me of is the fields, and this is something that I had in England and Japan when I lived in both countries. I'm currently in England, but the behind my house we have a big field which is a wheat field, and in Japan at this time of year the rice would also be ready to harvest. So in both these countries I had this very distinct memory of like yellow fields, so I wanted to kind of illustrate that. And also September is the month that you go back to school, or if you're in uni or college you go to do your studies. So I also wanted to be reminiscent of that period of my life when I was a child, I guess, and I would go back to school during this time. So I've done a kind of cute outfit, which I didn't want to draw a school uniform but I did like a kind of cute matching little outfit. So now I'm just actually putting the watercolor on. So if you were watching just the start of the video there, I just did an outline in pencil of what I wanted the picture to be, and then I used an eraser until it was very, very soft. So I've got a very soft pencil, and then I'm just going to go over that with watercolor, and I'm not being too careful about it. I'm waiting for different areas to dry before I'm putting any water next to that area, otherwise it will obviously bleed into the other colours that I don't want them to bleed into. But as you can see, I'm being quite heavy with the blush and stuff like that because I know that I'm going to just cover it up afterwards, and I'm not being too careful with the watercolour. But it was actually really nice to do this watercolour again, because I think it's been a little bit of time since I've done it. I tend to do a lot of sketches more recently, and especially because I'm like designing some Halloween stuff, so drawing Halloween stuff all the time on my iPad. So I'm not actually doing much watercolor at the moment, but I did just say to my husband that I cannot wait to take my little watercolor palette away with me. I feel like that's when I feel the most relaxed, is when I would actually use my watercolor. I've just noticed on the video that my nails match the murky paint water, so it's kind of put me off the colour of my nails. But yeah, anyway, so I feel like I don't get my watercolour palette out unless I have a little bit more time, which I haven't had a lot of time recently. So I must make time to do watercolour. So yes, when I started painting this as well with this little outfit, I did the collar. I wanted it to be like a lace collar, but as I was painting it, it started to look very I don't know, like something I've seen before, like some kind of uniform, or I'm not sure. I couldn't think exactly what it reminded me of. I don't know if it was like the movie Madeline, where they have the little hats and stuff. I'm not sure. So I decided to paint it green, and I wanted to paint the hat green as well, just so it didn't look too uniform-esque. And then if you look closely, you'll be able to see that she's holding a piece of wheat or rice, whichever you like, in her hand. And that is definitely something that I've done before. But actually today, all the birds were flying through the wheat field, and it just looked so beautiful. So it's nice to have these little elements and add these little elements to your journal, because it really makes you remember that specific time and how you were feeling and what you saw. And just by looking at this picture, it will take me back to today when I was watching those birds in the wheat field. So now after all that has dried, and I really made sure it was dry because I did not want this to smudge, I bravely took my brush pen, which is terrifying. I don't know if you've ever used a brush pen, you'll know, but it is very tricky to manage, and it has a lot, it's quite like wet, so you have to be careful where you're putting your brush. You have to be really specific and precise, and be very confident with your strokes. So I think it's cute, but yeah, it was kind of tricky to do. And I imagined her wearing glasses, so I put this big circle around her eye, and I wanted her to have these like big curious eyes, like and looking into the field. So yes, and then I finished it off by writing September, kind of sloppily, but I did write September. And that is it. This is my finished journal cover for September. I really hope you enjoyed this short but sweet video, and I will see you next Sunday with a brand new video. Take care, everybody. Bye.